Welcome, Guardians, to episode 279 of Destiny Massive Breakdowns. As always, I am your host, Kit Kutcha, and I am excited, as I am every single week, to bring you another fantastic show. This week on Destiny Massive Breakdowns, we have a whole bunch of weapons to go over for you, some weapons that anyone can get their hands on very easily, even if it's maybe a little harder to get the exact role that you're looking for. At the very least, the grind is not a super challenging one. And these weapons are pretty universally worth having. So that's one of the great things. I also have, as always, a new guest this week. Although, actually, my guest is a returning guest, and he's already a massive breakdowner. A member of the family here at Destiny Massive Breakdowns. Saint Kabir, welcome back to the show. Super excited to have you.
Hey Kit, thank you for having me. It feels good to return to the mothership on this episode, and honestly, there's a lot of weapons here that are very, very near and dear. You know, I'm very, very excited to talk about today.
Yeah, I like how you put that, the mothership. That's we're all huge like sci-fi nerds, so
it just fits, you know, seems right.
Yeah, it works well. There will be some probing going on in this show, only of weapons though, only of weapons, thank goodness. We're going to keep it PG-13 as we usually do. So before we get into all of that, Saint, how's life? You've got kind of the end of a bit of time at Bungie coming up in the near future. You've got other things going on in your life. What's new?
It's true, man. It has been a busy season. I am finishing up my contract as a gameplay specialist. Been working on a lot of Lightfall stuff. I'm not going to talk about any of that today, but I am very excited about it, and it's been very cool. I've met a lot of very smart, very interesting, and very knowledgeable people in my time at Bungie, and honestly, a lot of people that are very willing to share about their work and what they do and what they're passionate about, and it has been a very cool time. But as that contract ends, I'm also beginning something else. I'm getting married in just a few weeks.
That's right.
So it's kind of been a whirlwind. I'm very thankful so far for the time I would say that I've spent at Bungie. It has definitely been eye-opening, I would say, for sure, just as far as the amount of thought, the amount of effort, and the amount of detail, right, that goes into each one of these seasonal releases, expansion releases, and all that stuff. So I really enjoyed spending the time there to get to peek behind the curtain and give some very informative and useful feedback on the experience of a player kind of working in test. And honestly, I'm hoping to move forward, you know, just keep this path going in working in games. I've worked in software for a little bit for the past 3 or 4 years or so, but this is definitely a step forward in a more interesting direction, I would say, from the previous software job that I've had. So really enjoyed the time at Bungie. Met a lot of really cool people there, and a lot of people that have been willing to share about what they do, and I'm hoping to keep that going. I'm hoping to stay in games for the foreseeable future, and we'll see where that lands me looking into 2023. But for now, I'm very happy to be here. Very happy to be talking about some guns and what's still my favorite game, Destiny 2.
Awesome. Yeah, congratulations on getting married. That's I mean, it's a huge life-changing.
Dude, achievement unlocked right there. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a platinum trophy. Gotta be, at least. Okay. Yeah, I'm very excited. Also very excited to have a fiance that does not mind me spending a fair amount of time on video game weapon reviews, you know? Very, very appreciative of that. Very appreciative of that.
That's an important quality. It's, you know, it's hard to find that in another person. So when you do, you got to hang on to them. So you just take that as some advice from somebody who's been married for 10 years now. Just actually celebrated our 10-year anniversary.
Hey, well, congratulations to you
in August.
Too. Yeah.
So thank you. Yeah. Married life always has its ups and its downs, and like there'll be times when you hate each other, and then there'll be, you know, a few months later you'll remember why you first got married. And so it's like just being prepared for that long haul. Like life with another human being is always.
Yeah, I've had roommates for a long time, but
interesting.
It's a little different.
Yeah,
we jumped up a notch here. All right.
I mean, I would hope your time with your roommates was a little less intimate. But,
well, your college.
Yeah, you know. you know, you get to know people pretty well. But yeah, that's congratulations are due. There's a few folks getting married this fall in the Massive Breakdown server. It's a festive time.
It is.
So, well, I'm not gonna out them all here. I have trouble keeping up with it all. But those of you who are listening, you know who you are, and I wish you all the best. And also, congratulations just on the time at Bungie, because that's a huge opportunity. It takes some dedication. It takes presenting yourself well, and it takes a little bit of luck. And everything lined up, and couldn't have happened to a more deserving person. So really, really happy for you. Hope that you're able to continue that time in games. Although if Bungie does poach you full time, we'll lose you here, which would be...
It would be sad.
One of those bittersweet moments that has already happened too many times.
Yeah, you know, everybody's like, look, we know Merc. Okay, we've seen this. Yeah. Okay, we know what's going on here. All right.
We're developing a pipeline for recruitment there. That's really...
The D&B development pipeline? Is that patented yet? Do we think we need to get on that?
I think I might have to go ahead and file a copyright for that.
Yeah, there's a few things I would like to say that I have had an influence on in the game, but... We'll come back to that. We'll see how that lands in retail, as they say, in the live game come this spring. And I'm very anxious to talk about some of the things that I have had an impact on so far in my time there. But yeah, it's been good. And I do, it's not lost on me the luck too of the sensation of the time there. It's very easy to be caught up in the next moment. Right, in the thing that I need to accomplish, in the security of the future and all these things. But yeah, there also have been a few moments to just kind of revel in the presence of the people that you're working with and the thing that you're working on, and it's sweet.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel all of that. So that's actually a good transition point for me, which I'm going to ruin by calling it out. So one thing I do want to share. With the listeners on a personal note is that for the time being, hopefully not the foreseeable future, but at least for now. And I mean, heck, maybe hopefully for this foreseeable future. I don't know. Prove me wrong, y'all. But I'm currently a full-time professional Destiny content creator because I was laid off. My company has decided that remote work is the way of the past, and they let go all of the remote employees, which is as crazy as it sounds. Zero notice given. My access was shut down 45 minutes after they told me, so it was a quick bit of a shock. In fairness, that's a good practice for a company of the kind that I work for. The amount of personal information and damage that a disgruntled employee could do is literally terrifying. Fortunately, I'm a good person. I didn't do anything like that. I just copied out, my work documentation that I needed to, apply for jobs and stuff, and
anonymized to degree.
Spent the afternoon with my daughter. So,
yeah.
I'm obviously taking some time to look at what I want to do next, but I will be hopefully spending a bunch more time in the near future on Destiny stuff. And I'd like to invite everyone. People say you can't make a living doing podcasts unless you're super, super lucky. So I'd like to invite everyone to prove that false. Now's a great time to become a patron and to support the show. We just held some polls for this year's patron rewards, and it's exciting. We've got Irresolute on retainer again, and we're going to be getting some brand new custom art featured for Destiny Massive Breakdowns, featured for Podcast versus Enemies, and also for Star Wars Beneath Twin Suns, which will be returning next week. New episodes coming very soon from myself and Mercules. So our community chosen art subjects, the weapons that won the community vote were, drumroll, for Podcast versus Enemies, the chosen weapon was Wither Hoard. It is the most, I think, arguably the most cracked PvE exotic that's ever been released.
How can you ignore it? It's just so good on all fronts. It's so many activities, so many situations. It just continually puts in work day after day.
Yeah, it does. And it won. I think it had over 50% of the vote. it was truly like a landslide victory for Witherhoard in this year's vote. The good news for other weapons being that it can't win next year. So, there's that. On the PvP side for Destiny Massive Breakdowns, the chosen weapon was Dead Man's Tail. Yet another weapon that you could argue has been cracked since release.
It's true. Many ups and downs for TNT.
It's been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It has. Yeah, it's truly been a roller coaster. The latest changes, some folks love them, some folks are less excited. It is what it is. The weapon's still good.
Still will stand out, no matter what, no matter how you classify it.
Yeah, I'm still getting domed by it in the Crucible, so I feel like it's still got a place. And regardless, both visually beautiful weapons that I'm really excited to see rendered by Irresolute into some brand new art.
Irresolute's the man. If you see me on Twitter, that icon, you know who it came from. All right.
There you go. Yeah. So this will be our second year working with him. And I can't share anything about what we're doing for Beneath Twin Suns. If you wanna see early drafts and previews of the art as it is developed, you'll need to join us on Patreon and come hang out in the Discord. Patrons Lounge is a channel in the Discord. If you're in Discord and you don't see it, it's because you're not a patron. And so there are secret things that happen in the lounge that are not spoken of outside the lounge. And these art previews will be one of those things. And just for kind of the wrap up here, I haven't made all of this public yet on the Patreon, but we will be having posters, shirts, mugs, and possibly stickers available. We'll be giving some of that away for free based on the pledge tier for patrons. And then we'll also be making it available for purchase to all patrons at, the most reasonable cost that we can in light of current inflation. Production costs are a little higher than they were this time last year. Just a scotch.
Just a scotch,
Yeah.
Just a tinge.
So we're going to do our best to keep it affordable, but without defeating the purpose, of course, of supporting the show financially. And right now, a lot of this is something I'll be looking to help see my family through. Fortunately, are very frugal people, and so we're financially capable of surviving for quite some time, but certainly everything will help. All right, I think I've successfully guilted as many people as I'm going to into pledging to support the show. Saint, I'd like to take a minute at the head of the show here and pass the mic to you just to kind of let folks know where they might know you from in the Destiny community, what kinds of stuff you get down with, what types of content you like to play.
Sure.
Flex your KD. I don't know, whatever you want to do. Take the stage.
Well, I don't know about my KD. Yeah, it's all right. It's middling, maybe, as Court would say. But I grew up on Halo, right? Is kind of where I came into this community from, right? Saw Destiny, immediately picked that up back in the day. Played a lot of Destiny 1, kind of on and off. Actually started out as a Warlock, which is like just completely sacrilegious to say as a Titan main that I was a Voidwalker off the rip, but that's a reality. Played a lot of Destiny 1 with my buds and stuff like that, kind of on and off in college, and then really got into raiding and stuff like that around Forsaken. Around the time of Last Wish and all that, I started getting more invested with kind of the communities in D2 and things like that, especially as, raid layers and more things like this started to come out, and then there was more of a crowd for this, right? Really where I got deep into the Destiny community was around Season of Opulence. I started poking around, looking for different teams and stuff like that, different just clans and groups, because I wanted to go for a Crown of Sorrow Day 1 run, and that was my initial motivator. Drove me out to meet some people who got me introduced to some other people who introduced me to a group called Clan Truth, and they were the guys that I kind of met some people through there for my first Day 1 team. For sure did not get Crown of Sorrow Day 1. We got a week 1, and that was like a big achievement for me at first. And that was 2017 was Season of Opulence, maybe I can't remember exactly, but that's been a long time ago is the moral of that story. And ever since going for the Day 1 with those guys, eventually that kind of became my day one squad, and we kept pushing forward and forward on that. I got more involved with those guys, became an admin in the clan, and then just started going for every day one that we could after that. We kept trying. Eventually, the first day one we got was Deep Zone Crypt, and then we did, I think, Vogue was the next one after that, and Vow, and we did King's Fall, and we've just been going for every raid and raid title since then. Clan Truth has grown to like 1,400 people in the Discord, and there's like 7 rosters, so really just being involved there, doing a lot of Sherpas for raids and things like that, helping people through master challenges for their own Disciple Slayer titles and things like that is really where I got started, and that is honestly where I've stayed. I love raids. There's nothing that kept me in this game like going into Vault of Glass and defeating the Templar for the first time. I mean, this was like nothing I had seen before in a game. As a FPS console player growing up as a kid, the idea of a raid boss was just incredibly foreign to me. And the way that was introduced in the Vault of Glass just absolutely sucked me in. And yeah, now here we are.
As it did a lot of us, I think.
Yeah, that really was something special. And I think that it's... This is, we are not here on PvE, right? I'll keep my raid discussion to a minimum. But I think that something that people forget when they think about Vault of Glass in D2 is that it is a piece of content that had to introduce an entire genre of players to a new type of activity. And that is a gap that was bridged, some people would say not super successfully on the first jump, but I don't think that Vogue would have been successful if it had been as complicated maybe, or as in-depth or as advanced as some of the later raids were, right? And I'm absolutely a believer that Vault of Glass and, King's Fall walked so that like Deep Zone Crypt and Vow could run, in the way that they continue to develop bosses like Rolk, in the way that is such an interactive experience, in the way that they refined King's Fall and returned it back to the game. Absolutely love that. But yeah, I'm just somebody that loves raids, and I think that is the best part of the game, and I have tried to introduce as many people as I can over the past like 5 years or so to raiding, and to help them pursue even the pinnacle of that in, the master challenges and things like that. Also been big time into low mans, inspired by, Chevy and Cruz and Scaro, and watching all these different streamers do all their trios and duos. Done a bunch of that over the past few years. And that is also, if you're somebody that is into raiding and you think that raiding has gotten too easy for you, or maybe you've become complacent in your raiding, I would highly suggest that you go after a trio clear and a duo clear or anything like that, because that is something that will take, even the most vetted players to the extent of just perfection of the encounters and the memorization and the loadouts and the flow and the trust in your teammates and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's me.
That's awesome. Now, just so folks know, of course, you do also play some Crucible.
That's true. I'm not total scrub. I've been to the lighthouse. All right, I know what's going on over there.
Yeah. I want to make sure we get the full creds now. Now, I got to say, anyone who's out there doing low man raid challenges absolutely has the game sense to do very well in the Crucible, and it's just a matter of if they choose to or not. But I know, like you said, you've been to the lighthouse, and that sort of sums it up. Like, you don't get there unless you're just getting carried, which is fine. Not everyone wants to be good at the Crucible.
Hey, not everybody's a 2.0 KD player, and they don't need to be,
Yeah.
But I love Crucible. Honestly, even just doing private matches with my team, one of the things that we started doing, like we were sitting in orbit, we're raiding for the team to log on. We'll just queue up a Rumble private match and start trying to kill each other with our PvE loadouts. And I got to tell you, it's pretty good times. So,
nice.
I love jumping in, even just stuff like that. I haven't been doing a lot of Trials cards recently. Just have not had a lot of the time. And, I got to tell you, the meta is pretty strict in the Trials playlist these days, which can be tough to adjust to. But yeah, I mean, I absolutely love playing the Crucible. I grew up on Halo, right? So I grew up on SWAT and a lot of things like that. And maybe that's why I like the Battler so much. I don't know. That's maybe a psychological discussion for another day. But yeah.
It is a beautiful weapon. We will not be talking about it today, unfortunately. So there are a lot of weapons that drop from Dares of Eternity. Enough that I decided that unless... So here's the thing, right? Like, I could totally do like a 4-hour episode and just do all the Dares weapons, but...
Just an absolute massive breakdown.
Like an extra massive breakdown at that point, but I gotta take a page from Bungie and time gate this content a little bit here for you. So we're gonna get into all of the special weapons on this episode, and then I will be doing the primary weapons and the swords, aka the power weapons, in a future episode. I believe that is going to be lined up with Impetus if all goes to plan and Bungie doesn't throw some kind of massive curveball, like a 5,000 word TWAB, for example, that derails that conversation. But that's a conversation for another day. Today we're going to do two things for folks. We're going to cover the special weapons from Dares first up. And then second up, we are going to take a look at this 5,000 word TWAB and talk about some of the implications for the game, just kind of as much as we can get through in a reasonable amount of time. So with that said, let's, I'm a bad podcast host here. Let's take a brief moment and say thank you to some folks who have been waiting patiently for 25 minutes for me to say thank you to them. Yeah. You got me distracted, man. This is... I have to blame somebody else. As a Destiny player, it is my duty to blame somebody else for this situation.
Naturally.
All right, folks. So I talked earlier about supporting the show on Patreon. There are a lot of Guardians who are already doing this, and these Guardians are incredibly generous and truly have inspired me to continue week in and week out to put out just the highest quality Destiny content that I can. So without further ado, special thank you to the following Guardians: Impetus, Starscream, Zen SoCal, Askian Monk, Deacon, This Moment, Blackhammer Tech, Binary Wolf, The Shazzle, Sylve. Special thank you to Geolocating Shark, who is upgrading his membership. I thought I had limited the number of people who could pledge at the sponsor level on Patreon, which was a bit of an arbitrary thing to do. But apparently that's not working because now there's like 11 of them.
Can't time gate these guys, all right?
Yeah, I can't stop it. So, I guess that's that. I'm not mad about it. And I just want to say an extra special thank you to Deacon because I believe I forgot to thank him last week somehow. I don't know how I didn't read his name. I have this like a list in front of me. But somehow I didn't read it, and so I apologize, and I appreciate you, Deacon. Thank you. Special thank you as well to Trader Joe's Orange Chicken, which is in fact a Discord tag and also a product. And I'm thinking the player in this case, but there we are.
Maybe I should give it a try. I don't know. Maybe I need to open up my mind a little bit there.
Yeah, and stay tuned for the end of the show. We've got a brand new review, 5 stars. That is really, really nice, and I'll share that hype when we get to the end of the show. All right, without further ado, let's do this thing. One of the longest intros in a while, but we'll be putting some timestamps in here for folks. So let's talk about some Dares of Eternity weapons. I've been saying a lot of words, so I'm just going to say a few more and then pass the mic to you, Saint. First weapon on the docket today is one that I know is near and dear to your heart, and a lot of Guardians, I think. Wastelander M5, kinetic, lightweight shotgun, 80 rounds per minute. Looking at the baselines here for this gun, like just kind of the raw package, no perks, no nothing. It's got fairly average stats compared to its peers in the lightweight shotgun department. Slightly higher range than some of them, slightly lower aim assist than some of them. Base drop-off for lightweight shotguns is 4.98 meters in game, which is really short. That is within melee range, which of course is the common way to use them, that shotgun melee combo. So that all said, I want to pass it to you. Get your take on kind of the stats, what stats you look for in a lightweight shotgun, and you can take us right into the perks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love a high mobility class in the Crucible. I am by all intents and purposes a Titan main, but I think that if you follow my Crucible matches over the years, you will see that I definitely have a penchant for the ability to just get into and out of a situation quickly. And lightweight shotguns really play right into that, whether that is a Behemoth Titan, a Solar Warlock, or even an Arc Titan. Lightweights really lean into that jump in, jump out type of a play style. They allow you to close those gaps quickly. They give you that +2 tiers to mobility, which I'm, to be frank, rarely highly speccing into in my Crucible builds, and it is always a big boon to me. When I am thinking about my lightweight shotguns, I go back to some favorites, immediately coming to my mind, something like Emperor's Courtesy, right? A Reese Walker are our top hits for the lightweight frame. I want some good range, but I want even better handling, because I think that is something that is so key, especially when I'm considering I'm probably running a hand cannon, a pulse rifle, something like that, and I want to clean up. I want something that I can get in there with quickly and get a few rounds off. And then also, honestly, assault mag is something that we'll kind of come to in a minute here, but that higher rate of fire on the follow-up hit is something that can be especially important on a shotgun like a lightweight frame, like a Wastelander, that doesn't have the highest one-hit KO distance that you are used to in some of your aggressive frame shotguns, your slug shotguns, your chaperones, your things like that. So I always like to spec in for that extra RPM. I always like a high handling, and then range. We'll see what we can do from there. Kit, like you said, when you look at the Wastelander off the rip, it really doesn't have anything that is spectacular. It has a lot of good stats. Doesn't have any just absolute, hits.
Yeah, it's not an outlier on the baseline.
It's not. But it turns out that really when we look at the range, we only need to get the range to about 55, which is kind of a number that I have in my head, and we'll get to why that is such a desirable number or why that is so important. But all that to say, we look at the base range of the Wastelander in its base handling. Base handling is 66, is high in general, not crazy high for your lightweight frame shotguns. A Reese Walker even has a 5 points higher at 71, still good. Reese Walker is also outranging it by just a single point at 45, which is interesting depending on the perks that you're going to land on there. But for my Wastelander, I have a few things that I'm going to be looking for first off the rip in the barrel and mag. When I look at barrel, I'm basically got two choices, maybe three if you want to hit it that way. I like small bore, and I'm a big fan of full choke, depending on what the feel is. You want to go for that pellet spread, or are you trying to get those one-hit KOs, or do you want some nice stat bumps to your range? But yeah, those are definitely going to be my looks off the rip. And then when we look at the second column, I really like Assault Mag, and I know that the classic choice here is going to be accurized rounds to push that range up 10 points, and I can't argue. It is incredibly valuable, but that extra 10 onto the RPM to take it up from 80 to 90 with a weapon that you may need to be cleaning shots up on can prove incredibly valuable for closing up those situations in which you are leaving your opponent with 8 points of health and they're just about to slide away. That extra fraction of a second can't be understated in value. And when we look at our further traits here, which we'll talk about in just a second, we really only need to be hitting about 55 range. And if I have got even just a range masterwork, I'm going to be pushing up to 54, which will allow me to get to a 99 with the right, main, third and fourth column traits here. So, Kit, I'll hand it off to you to talk about our main traits and why we may not be so worried about a range stat of only 54.
Yeah, so the kind of the traditional wisdom in terms of the range that you want on a lightweight shotgun, as passed down by Yvonne and Yoda, is more in the vein of like 80 plus range for a lightweight to really have a enough range to be effective. And I think it's good advice. But here you're right. We've got multiple ways around that problem that allow us to lean heavily into handling, which is, of course, the other equally most important stat on a shotgun. And this is one of the things that makes Wastelander such a strong pick. And honestly, if I did not have a perfectly rolled Reeswalker, I would really be chasing this hard. But I do, so I'm not. But that's kind of the thing, right? Like if you don't Reeswalker, getting that thing perfect, that was a grind. Like that was not easy to do, and I frankly just got lucky, right?
Banner is not always kind, you know.
No, Lord Saladin giveth, but Lord Saladin mostly does not giveth. So it's really just pure luck. But the Wastelander you can chase, and that's the beauty of it.
And you can craft too.
Yes,
which is
and you
huge.
can craft. And so the first perk, I'm going to skip straight to the fourth column here for just perhaps the most obvious choice on a shotgun ever, and that is opening shot. Opening shot, 20 aim assist, 25 range, penalties to accuracy, cone growth, and size. And I guess penalties to those are buffs to us. So ultimately making those cones smaller and grow less quickly, or that cone, singular, applies only to the first shot, and you have to not fire for 3.1 seconds to make this trait active, but that's not super difficult to do with the shotgun melee lifestyle. You know, by and large, you're able to pretty much have this be effective every single time you pull the trigger, and it's just really, truly like
it's an insta pick. It's a non-choice, as they say. Yeah,
absolute S tier. Now there is an argument to be made for 1-2 punch as a choice. And that argument, especially for Trials players, especially if you are concerned about, say, the return of zone trials, is wells and bubbles. They're a problem.
And they'll be there. You can count on that. All right.
Yeah, 100%. They will be there. They will always be there. And 1-2 punch is an answer to those. It is not a perfect answer. It is a risky answer, but it is an answer. And even better, because this is craftable, enhanced 1-2 punch. So rather than having to land every pellet, all 12, you only have to land 10 with the enhanced version, making it far easier to activate. And that 200% melee damage buff actually then puts you in the realm to take down an overshielded Titan, an overshielded Warlock, or their friends. And so that's really a super valuable option to have. If you go that way, I would build this out with more range. I would at that point go accurized rounds over assault mag so that it is playable and competitive in a general sense, as in addition to just being...
Oh, and that full choke, too, becomes so important. Right, forget that tight pellet spread, making sure you're hitting those rounds, you know. And I guess another one I should have mentioned early on is Barrel Shroud. Gives plus 10 handling, I guess, right, is another one. But yeah, full choke, man. It's
the biggest handling buff you can get. Corkscrew gives you plus 5, but I like Barrel Shroud for that plus 10 handling, because handling is super important, and you can get, like you said, as long as you get to that 54 range, you know, opening shot is giving you plus 25, which is putting you at 79, which is more or less where you need to be.
But that's not all.
That's not all. But wait, there's more. In the third trait column, we've got Slide Shot, which is another beautiful, beautiful perk for shotguns. Sliding partially reloads the weapon's magazine, temporarily boosts range and stability. It lasts for 3 seconds, has a 0.3 second cooldown. It refreshes 15% of the magazine, so in this case, it generally is going to load 1 round, which is all you need. And it grants you 20 range and 30 stability. So that with that 20 range, you can then consistently be pushing yourself up to 74 range effectively and 99 on the majority of 1v1 encounters, which means you are going to be landing shots at the maximum distance that is reasonable to achieve here, over 7 meters for a lightweight.
Shocking distance, I would even say, occasionally. From using this in the Crucible as I leveled it up. It still surprises me sometimes when it will secure that full kill.
Yeah, it absolutely is just really, really nice. And as far as other perks, other ways you could go with this weapon, you know, if you lean toward, or if you happen to get, you know, a generally high range option, you could try to build or lean toward an airborne effectiveness version of this. If you want to be shotgunning midair, it's got extended mag, it's got aerosol. The base airborne effectiveness on a shotgun is 2, so it's an uphill battle. But throw on air assault and extended mag and Icarus, and you can get it up to 37. And that's not nothing. Throw on a decent airborne exotic, and you could be pushing 50, 60 pretty handily, which is going to give you accuracy. And,
yeah, when it's airborne or air assault goes up to like plus 50.
It
right?
does. It does. If you've taken damage as
plus 60 actually. Sorry.
Yeah, 60 total. Yeah, if you're absolutely critical. So air assault is essentially Eye of the Storm, but for airborne guardians, it gives a baseline plus 10 airborne effectiveness, and then the airborne effectiveness stat goes higher up to a maximum of 60 as your health gets lower. So it is a scaling benefit. Anytime you're damaged, it's doing something. So that's absolutely an option. I don't know that it's an option I'd go to. I'm pretty much boots on the ground these days. It's just a safer playstyle, allows me to more maximize the weapon.
Yeah.
But there are playstyles that might benefit from that, and maybe we'll get some more tools next season or in Lightfall on that front.
Yeah. Another thing I want to mention here is the origin trait.
Yes.
I don't have the exact numbers on this, but the new hot swap origin trait for the 30th anniversary weapons basically states that when you are damaged, any amount of damage, you have strongly increased handling for a short duration when swapping to the weapon. Gotta tell you, on a weapon that has nice base handling that you could get even higher, up to 76 or something like that if you're running Barrel Shroud, it really doesn't hurt. It really just adds on top of that nice handling stat, and it's noticeable. It is perceptible, I think, in the Crucible whenever you're using this thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's really solid, and it does give you a little more flexibility, if there are directions you want to go, So, for example, you could run a version of this, with 1-2 punch and some range perks, and even if your handling maybe ends up a little tanked, say you end up with rifled barrel. If you're like me and you don't always want to have to ADS in order to, sure, it gives you better pellet spread, but
it also
costs you time. And that can impact whether or not you win the engagement. So sometimes if you get used to hip firing these weapons, rifled barrel is a better option for you with that plus 10 base range. And hot swap lets you get away sometimes with tanking your handling just a little bit. So it's good to keep that in mind as a potential option. Going in that kind of vein, if you're running the opening shot version, you could also run air assault right there if you want to have the option to go airborne.
Mm-hmm. Still a lot of range. A lot of range.
Still, you could easily, with a range masterwork and rifled and accurized, you're at 74 base range, and an opening shot just puts you all the way up to 99 again. So you tank your handling, you run, your arc charged with light mods so that you can get that nice big instant swap on the shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got the hot swap origin trait perk there helping you to maximize your handling, so you can just not worry too much about it. So that absolutely an option, a direction you could go in. Perpetual motion also gives you kind of static, small buffs to handling and reload.
Right.
It's 5 on one stack, which activates after 2 seconds, 15 on the second stack, but it does take 10 seconds of movement. So it takes a little bit to get it going, but it is there. And it's not too hard to lean into that I'm constantly strafing playstyle. Like, you just have to sort of be mindful. And honestly, constantly strafing is often good advice.
I was going to say, is that such a bad Crucible move anyways? I remember when I was really first trying to improve my game and somebody told me ABS, always be sliding. So if I'm still adhering to that advice, I've probably got perpetual motion up a good amount of the time.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, that's about all I've got to say on the Wastelander. Bottom line, this is a super solid weapon. Even if you don't get your 5 red borders, it is worth picking up some copies of this gun and hoping that you get a good one, because it is absolutely a great choice for the kinetic slot.
Plenty of variations there. Yeah.
Yeah. Frees up that energy slot to be your primary. There are a ton of great energy primaries to pair with it. So that's the Wastelander. Any final thoughts? Because I know this is one that's dear to your heart. Any final thoughts on the Wastelander?
Yeah, I just really enjoy that thing. Get in there and play some Dares of Eternity. you get a slide shot, opening shot roll, it will seriously surprise you how far and how consistent this thing can be, especially with the right rolls. And it also, again, is very forgiving in the fact that there are multiple roles and versions of this that you can find success within the Crucible. So, yeah, get a Wastelander. Use it. If you're a Reese Walker fan, you're probably a Wastelander enjoyer. Okay, let's be clear.
There you go.
That's all I got to say for the Wastelander for now. It's a great weapon.
It is. I should note, being a lightweight, it's 18 damage to the body, which means it needs 11 pellets out of the 12 fired to strike to get the one shot, which is not consistent at many ranges. So general best practice, and this is just true of all shotguns, is to follow it up with a melee. That's just always a good idea to be prepared. I don't always do that. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I've got the kill. I don't need to follow it up. And
you trust that Wastelander a little too much.
I'm right a lot, and when I'm wrong, I die. So
I think that has more than zero to do with the fact that I like Ophidians so much with this weapon. I don't think I need to explain why that is the hell of a choice right there.
Yeah, that really gives you a lot of range to work with in making this an effective playstyle. All right, well, let's talk about the other shotgun that drops from Dares of Eternity. And I call it the other shotgun. I know you've got some thoughts on why that might be the case. So let's dive into the Matador 64, which is just a really fun name to say. And B, it's an archetype of shotgun that we don't see as often. I feel like we see a lot of lightweights.
Yeah.
We see a good number of aggressives. We don't see as many of the precision frame shotguns, and it's precision, not the slug. This is a pellet shotgun with a more predictably vertical recoil, which is just an interesting.
That is a trait.
State of affairs. So the precision frame shotguns are 70 rounds per minute. The Matador 64 is an arc weapon. In general, compared to its peers, it has decent baseline stats, generally average to perhaps slightly better than average. Its base aim assist, however, is a bit lower than other precision shotguns, which is, I'd say, a point against it, unfortunately.
Yeah, not a stat people think about a lot when they talk about shotguns, and there's been a lot of different conversations about how much does it affect the spread versus the initial and middle pellet and all that stuff, but not something to completely ignore, right?
Yeah, no, and shotguns are confusing. So I'm going to try not to say anything that I don't know for sure, but I know for sure it does pull that center shot toward the Guardian, and I hope that results in the rest of the shots being perhaps
you would like to think,
more accurate.
Yeah, me too.
But who knows? Fortunately, that whole thing is going to be changing soon, one way or another. So we'll just bide our time and wait for that. The base drop off for the precision frames is 5.74, for the Matador specifically, is 5.74 meters with its baseline 64 or 65 range. So a bit better than a lightweight because this class of weapons has a bit more base range, and so that does help them out in terms of being able to secure the one hit. That said, they're only doing one more point of damage per pellet, and that is not enough to affect the number of pellets required to get the kill. They still have to hit 11, even though they fire more slowly. And that is unfortunate, because it does mean that cleaning up a missed kill is a thing that will result in you dying more often. That's unfortunate. Once again, Saint, I want to pass the ball to you here. Take a look at the perks. What do you think? What do you feel?
Yeah, I will say, I'm just going to say off the rip, I'm like I said at the beginning of the episode, I'm somebody who is a very avid raider, so I had a adept, a time loss found verdict very early on, and I understand that is not super common, and I understand that the vast majority of the player base is not grinding out all of the Master Vogue challenges and getting their time lost found verdicts, and even those that are not having great luck with their RNG and the spoils chests that they are spending them on at the end of that raid. So I think I came into this weapon a bit harsh just because of that and because of its archetype. But there was a time that I was a big fan of Retold Tale at another point in the sandbox, and I think that Matador does have it's got some stuff to offer, right? Looking at its base stats, like you said, it's pretty middle of the road. Some good stats, nothing crazy stands out in a few. It has kind of second place for its range at 65 points, and its handling is highest of some of its energy competitors, which is nice to see, right? So it's got some things going for it off the bat. It's not bad. When I am thinking about its barrels and mags, I'm definitely leaning for the consistency here, right? I don't want the insane range stat. I'm probably just going straight in for full choke off the bat, but I understand that is somewhat of a personal preference and not necessarily the automatic choice, especially with a weapon like this that you want to clean up some shots on. I think that if I could just absolutely pick a role here, I'm probably going to be leaning in on a decent amount of handling, because that base stat, even at 43, which is strong for its archetype, generally speaking, could still use some help. So I'm going to be looking to help push that up a little bit with you have a barrel shroud if you are not going to pull full choke, and then there are a few other options that you could use there to help just get the overall handling off. And I think that, as opposed to Wastelander, where I'm very much so sold all in on assault mag, is something I really like. I may go for accurized rounds in this, because this is kind of a weapon that I'm looking to secure more one-hit kills on, right?
Yeah, I think that's something I would agree with. I think it's important, again, to kind of push the range up a little bit, but also acknowledging that the handling is the big weakness of the weapon. Even just 10 points of range is going to put it at 75, which is going to get the damage fall off to 7 meters, which is it's an acceptable level.
And we look in that final trait column. You already know it's there. It's opening shot. So in the same way that we were talking about your
I was counting opening shot too. I just realized that.
Yeah, it's like, no, I need 75 range because that's effectively 100. But honestly, more specifically, or the kind of, I think what's up for more debate here is really your third column trait. I see threat detector, right? I see full auto. Interesting. And I see perpetual motion. And one of the reasons I'm looking at full auto is for that RPM increase if you want to lean all the way in on like an assault mag type of a deal. But honestly, something like perpetual motion, something like threat detector, which is giving that 75% handling effectiveness or 0.75 multiplier, meaning that it's effective 25% increase on your just pure handling, and then even a higher than that, it's like 45% when you're within the range of 2 enemies within 15 meters, is quite strong, especially for like a heavily populated, sixes type of a quick play type of a thing like that. And then perpetual motion, just because of the way that that's going to be rocking in the background, giving up to that 15 handling, is going to be really nice. And even though its reload and stability from that perk are not going to be a ton to offer there, I'm probably going to go with one of these two guys over full auto. Kit, what are you looking for there in the third column?
Yeah, no, I mean, those are kind of the 3 perks in the third column that grab me as well. And I love threat detector when you're using the shotgun, maybe less aggressively, more as a counter to
the defender.
Yeah, more of a defense weapon, a holdout weapon, where it's going to give you that nice handling animation multiplier that's going to kind of stack up again with the arc charged with light option that you have there to make your shotguns and fusion rifles and SMGs swap much, much faster, to allow you to really swap to this weapon just ultra fast with no dexterity mods needed. You just go straight into it. And threat detector is really, really strong. for that kind of a playstyle. It's one of those perks that I think has been slept on for a long time. And I've been talking about it a ton in recent episodes because I don't know. So at some point I was just like, I have been ignoring this perk, and they have just been, at some point they just piled a ton of power into it.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, 15 meters that's not super close, especially when you're considering shotgun range. It's pretty easy to be within 15 meters of one target at any given time.
It is. You can use this to swap when you're closing on someone, and you can use it, again, when someone's closing on you. So I think it's a really, really strong option. Perpetual motion is good passive to have. It's on so many weapons, it's a good passive to have. It's just a nice little bump, and all you have to do, like we said, is just keep moving.
Just keep moving.
Just keep wiggling that thumbstick, and it'll stay active. So that's nice. Full auto. And you mentioned this before with Assault Mag, increasing the rate of fire. That is a direction that I used to like going on shotguns. And I think where I've come around to on it is that it's a nice to have, but ultimately, if I have to, like if I'm in a situation where I need it to have a higher rate of fire, I have probably misplayed the situation. And I'm looking at that point for get out of jail cards. And I would have been better off, say, not trying to take a 2v1 at close range, or not missing my shot, or not whiffing my melee, which is not always in your control, admittedly, but
sure.
But so looking at it from a perspective of like taking the learning moment, taking the L, and just getting more effective so that I don't miss, and that's more been the direction that I've been leaning, and then going with super strong perks that just passively make the gun excellent, like Threat Detector or Perpetual Motion. I think Threat Detector is probably the strongest. A multiplier is always going to overpower a small stat buff, even a large stat buff. Often, multiplier is going to be better than. So that for me is, I think, the strongest perk in that column. I'll note it has tunnel vision, and if you're playing sixes and you want to go chaining kills, like a huge aim assist and accuracy cone buff. And an ADS handling multiplier as well. It also helps you ADS faster. So tunnel vision's super powerful. If you're going, say, Golden Tricorn or Swashbuckler in that final column, you're playing a super aggressive Titan build, for example. Swashbuckler is hugely powerful for Titans right now, and for Warlocks as well. They have great melee going, and I guess Hunters have Tempest Strike, which, to be honest, feels a little lackluster compared to the other arc classes, but Hunters have other good melees. So
yeah.
So, and Tricorn, of course, plays off a lot of that same stuff. Harmony is a great perk. You've got 1-2 punch if that's the direction you want to go. But I think in terms of using this as a shotgun, opening shot is just
hard to miss.
Overall,
you're not getting into master raids. You don't have the perfect found verdict. You're trying to get into some shotguns, maybe grab a Matador 64 out of the vault. It is classic. It's a D1 classic, and it may not be the best shotgun out there, but it's not the worst one either, by any chance.
Yeah, you could absolutely do worse. Truly, you could. You could do better as well, but but it's not bad. That's what I could say about it, right? It's not a bad shotgun.
It's not bad. It's not great. It's not bad.
Yeah. But it's there. And if you happen to get a great one, then it's probably better than a mediocre version of a great shotgun. So there's that's certainly something. All right, enough ragging on the Matador.
It's a not so competitive slot here as we move into a kinetic breech-loaded grenade launcher with Pardon Our Dust.
Okay.
Maybe I spoke too soon, but this is it's kind of an interesting archetype in Crucible in general. I don't think that I think a lot of people see this type of a loadout as trolly or just for fun and that kind of a thing. But if we are going to be taking a kinetic reach load into the Crucible, this is a craftable one. It's a lightweight frame. It does have those bonuses. Kit, what are you looking for in your barrel and mag, or your grenade type, I guess is a better way to phrase that.
Yeah. The sad thing about the barrel and mag choices for grenade launchers for me is that there's nothing to lean into airborne effectiveness, and I'd love to make sure that grenade flies straight when I'm in midair.
No drop mag, you know?
Yeah. So what I look for on these is generally I go one of two directions. If I'm trying to kind of go ultra pro and actually like land my shots, then spike grenades is of course the go-to. It amps up the impact damage so you can one shot and just makes the weapon like insanely lethal. That said, that is a truly an art. It is not insanely hard to do, but it is, I would say, very hard to do consistently against moving targets in the Destiny, Crucible environment, in terms of, the potential for somebody to be lagging out, at which point a grenade launcher is literally the worst weapon you could have.
Yeah, movement options are not few, and they are not far in between. All right.
This is a weapon that requires anticipating your opponent's movements, and that is certainly something that can be very challenging. Now, the other option that you can go with for a weapon like this is, of course, you can use it to clean up or to blend. And those two are essentially the same build, either way. It's more or less one thing, and you're going with proximity grenades there. Because then you don't really have to aim. Now, it does penalize the blast radius, but all you do then is just build into the blast radius to counteract that. It's only minus 20, very easy to counteract. You can grab a masterwork, get you plus 10. You can grab any of a few different barrel perks to get you a nice plus 10.
There's plus 5s, plus 10s. Yeah, there's some options.
Pretty easy to get back up there. I like confined launch as an option, although it does penalize the velocity, which I hate to do. But it does give you plus 10, which makes it stack up really well with the masterwork, so you're not wasting any stats. And it also gives you plus 15 stability, so if you do happen to need to take a follow-up shot, the weapon's a little easier to handle. Unfortunately, there's not really a way to get blast radius and handling on the same barrel, and that truly would be the ticket right there. So that's the sadness that I have, is that that's not an option. But those are the only two that I play in PvP. And of course, blinding grenades is just absolute S tier in PvE. The only way to go for a weapon like this. I know that, acknowledge that, and always have one on hand.
Oh yeah, it is. The blinding grenades, they don't leave the loadout. All right, let's be clear about that. The blinding kinetic GL stays on my Titan. Utility just can't be matched on a perk like that. Maybe chill clip, but it's a discussion for another time.
Yeah, so I don't want to spend an excessive amount of time on Partner or Dust, but what do you looking at the other two, and I guess I don't know, do you do a lot of breach grenade launchers in the Crucible?
No, I don't know how many kills I have with breach shells. It's few. It's sub 100 in the recent seasons of the Crucible. It's just not something. I play a lot of sniper, SMG, or shotgun and pulse rifle or hand cannon and whatever. But yeah, I just don't get into a lot of breach GLs. I'm still probably pulling in my same auto-loading holster in our main trait there, our first main trait, column 3. But I'm kind of at a loss for what I would really pick in column 4. Maybe demo, as a utility, because I don't think some perks like a Rampage or AJ, Adrenaline Junkie, this is not a weapon that I'm going to be chaining kills with necessarily, and
right.
The value proposition there is just not super high for me.
Yeah, so one of the things that I do like about this weapon, is that the new version has hot swap, which makes this really a perfect choice for blinting with. Especially if you're using it as your cleanup option. If you're leaning into a ranged melee or a grenade heavy build, being able to take some damage, respond with this after taking some damage by swapping to it very, very quickly, and then taking down possibly 2 or even 3 guardians with a single shot. If you've caught some folks with your storm grenade, you can easily clean them up with Partner or Dust. and it, that nice little handling buff that you get just for being damaged is really, really very nice.
Mm-hmm. I've run into some bank shot wizards out there too. I know they're there. This may not be my personal a skill that falls into my set in the Crucible, but I have played against it, and I know it's a thing. I know it's out there.
That's the joy of grenade launcher play, is landing those bank shot kills. There are few things more rewarding to the person who gets the kill, and undoubtedly more tilting to the person who got killed.
What can simultaneously feel so good and yet so bad?
Yeah. This is why grenade launchers really, really walk the line on that like net fun measurement that Mercules talked about last time he was on the show, where it's like, it makes one person feel really good. It makes everyone they play against feel really bad. And so, when does it become a problem? Well, when it becomes common, so fortunately these are not commonly used, but they certainly can be effective in the right hands. In that fourth column, I would agree. I'd say Demolitionist or Pugilist would be the two go-to perks. Special weapons grant 20% energy back, which is a huge thing to note because primary and power weapon kills only grant 10% for these perks. So having one of those on a special weapon is really impactful in your game, especially if you are running a build that leans heavily into it. If you're running, as I often do, and it's one of my favorite examples, Caliban's Hand Hunter, dropping explosive throwing knives. Mm-hmm. This is just a match made in heaven, where I can run Pugilist, and whichever one I get the kill with, I'm happy, right? Either the knife regenerates itself or, pardon our dust, regenerates it for me. There's no sad outcome there for me. I like autoloading holster and steady hands in the third column, both, either reloading it for me when I'm swapped off or just improving the handling for all my weapons for 8 seconds after a kill. Just depends on the playstyle I've chosen, which one of those is going to be stronger. But I think that more or less sums it up. I do love Breach. Man, it's been a hot minute since I've played a grenade launcher build in the Crucible.
It's true. Maybe am I missing out? Do I need to go back?
They're fun,
we'll see.
Man. They're
yeah.
Are they meta? I don't know, but they are fun. All right. What's up next here? What do we have?
Now we have something that I don't think that there is an argument to be made either way.
Might be the shortest one.
If this fits into the meta, this is another non-craftable. This is a weapon that comes from also the 30th anniversary pack, Grasp of Avarice Dungeon, and is the 1,000-yard stare. This is another returning weapon from Destiny 1, and its initial release, and even still now, I think is quite a strong weapon with a few pretty good perks and a few absolutely top choice perks. Whenever we look at the 1K stare in terms of its competition, just energy slot adaptive sniper rifles, there are quite a few. Beloved, Adored, Fugue 55, Far Future, Uzume, or not, it was Galu, sorry.
Galu, yeah.
But a lot of competition there. And I think that even amongst all of these sniper rifles in the energy slot, it's a bit unique. It has a few unique stats, especially the 44 zoom. I think closest would be like Far Future or Adored, which are like 45, but typically, you're looking at 40 or 50, depending on what the sniper is and all these different things. But yeah, some pretty solid stats right off the rip. It has almost the best range compared to these guys. It has pretty good stability, which in terms of flinch and fighting back against a lot of things, that has become increasingly important in the current sandbox, and pretty much second place on handling. So generally speaking, the 1K Stare came out of the gate with a good historic reputation, a interesting zoom, a unique zoom level, and pretty competitive base stats.
Yeah.
Whenever we kind of get into adding on to this, Kit, what are you picking? Barrels and mags.
Well, so one other thing I do want to call out about the base stats before we dive into that is that
Sure.
the 1K has 66 aim assist, which is on the high end for the adaptives. The adaptives are a bit one way or the other. They're either like between 60 and 62, or they're between 66 and 68 for aim assist. So it is on the upper end there, which is nice because that's a full perk's worth of aim assist, +5, or a full mod's worth of aim assist, I should say. So absolutely, worth noting, and that does make a difference in how effective it is, and how nice it is to have, right?
Yeah, well, targeting adjuster mod is 5 points.
Yeah,
right. I mean, 61 to 66.
Yeah.
There's your mod right there. Yeah, that's a great point. Great point.
Free, absolutely free. That's something I've been spending time thinking about. When I look at the stat packages, it's like, hey, this weapon has like this many free perks compared to mostly it's Ias Luna and Palindrome and Ostringer that I think about that. But there are other weapons that occasionally are outliers. Mostly hand cannons. I don't know why, but
the stat packages, man.
Yeah. So the 1K is not quite on that level in terms of being an outlier, but it is very solid. In terms of what I'd be looking for, now I'm by no means a sniper, but I have spoken to many snipers, and I've learned at the feet of the far more skilled what things are going to make a sniper good. And handling is such a big one, but I'm going to jump to the end here because 1K has just that most coveted of all perk combinations on a sniper rifle. It's got quick draw and snapshot in different columns, which means you can have them both, which means you can instantly draw and ADS, maybe perhaps not instantly, but very, very fast, right? So snapshot, remember, is 0.75x animation multiplier for special weapons is a 0.5x for primaries only. So it's a little bit less effective on specials, but 25% faster aim down sights is nothing to sneeze at. Even if it's less powerful than it used to be, it's still a very, very good perk.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have a lot of stiff competition. Moving target's decent, but I gotta say I'd rather aim down sights faster with a sniper rifle than I would have an extra 10 aim assist and slightly better strafe speed. Your mileage may vary, but that's my feeling on it. Golden Tricorn, one stack, the times one version of that, the baseline, will not let you one body somebody. And so right there, that just says to me, not worth it on this weapon, right?
Yeah, too big of an ask to get the kill and the ability kill. It's just too much.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get it going, if you've got a system to make that happen, a 50% damage buff is all you need to start body shotting Guardians, but that is a lot of work. Quick Draw has a little more competition. No Distractions is, of course, very nice for reducing flinch. Firmly Planted does make the weapon very, very accurate. But snipers are already quite accurate. And that's really it, I suppose. So it's not a ton of competition, but perhaps a few more viable options. That combo right there pretty much makes the weapon. I almost don't care what's on the rest of it. I'll just throw stuff into handling, basically, and be done.
Yeah, this is another gun that I've used a decent bit. I think I've got about 300 kills on my Crucible version of this with a quick draw snapshot that I like to use with kinetic SMG. Right, is my usual kind of go-to pairing there. But I think you pointed this out earlier on. One of the aim assist stat is already so high. You put a targeting mod on there, you're looking at 71 aim assist, which is really high. A helmet mod could push this even higher. And I think that the fluidity of movement that the quick draw snapshot allows you to have when coming off of or cleaning up a kill is incredible. Jumping into a lane, I can think vividly back to a Trials weekend of playing with this weapon. A teammate it gets a shot on the enemy, you can just instantly swap for a body shot, quick cleanup. You can slide into a lane and shoot. If you miss, you're off of this weapon onto your primary so quickly, ready to clean up that kill from the body or whatever it may be. But yeah, when it comes to just snappy weapons that feel quick, man, it is hard to surpass the 1K stare with that combo. The motion of pulling it out and aiming it down sights in such a quick way is just awesome, and it really is a great feel, especially with a pretty low zoom of 44, which I know some people are super particular about their sniper zooms and exactly how they land, but yeah, that has been my go-to role. I tried Firmly Planted. I know, as like you're talking about always be sliding earlier, or something I mentioned is great. I just couldn't. I can't get myself off of Quick Draw for Firmly Planted in this case, you know.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. And that's really like what makes this weapon, I think, special and what makes it stand out. You know, because you can lean fully into that super snappy, just feel good play style. You know, throw a hand lead masterwork on, throw fluted barrel on if you can get it, arrowhead if you can't, to just stack up the handling points. I like flared magwell for that big plus 15 to reload speed. It's always nice to be able to reload quickly. And there's not a lot else that is super impactful in that magazine slot. Accurized is always nice for the very long lanes, you know, but ultimately it's at that point kind of like just whatever you get there is kind of gravy on the top. It's truly, if you can get those final two perks, you kind of just have to be happy with what you have on the rest of the gun.
They're worth it. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's the 1K, the 1,000-yard stare. I don't know if I said this. It's a Void adaptive sniper, for anyone who's not immediately sure. So that's where it fits into your loadout. All right. Well, that's almost all of the special weapons from the 30th anniversary pack. We've got one more to cover. One more that I think perhaps is one of the most overlooked. You know, whether for good reason or not, I guess we'll discover here as we go through it. But that is the Retraced Path, which is a solar legendary trace rifle. And I call out the legendary, of course, because there are so few of them. Most of them are exotics. So this weapon has great base stats, which is standard for a trace rifle. They pretty much, by and large, always have just really phenomenal baseline stats. Though notably, the stats are a bit less good than Hollow Denial from the Derelict Leviathan. Not enough that I would necessarily always choose Hollow Denial over Retraced Path, but enough to make a note of. A perk's worth, one might say. Yeah. A perk's worth less good.
Hey, 4 points here, 3 points there. It adds up.
It does. A couple of notes from the TWAB, just pulling them in early here. We're going to get to this later, but there were a couple of notes about trace rifles that I want to mention, and I guess one about snipers that I should mention as well before we get too deep into this. So trace rifles, there were some questions answered. They do not have accuracy bloom when you're holding down the trigger, so they remain perfectly accurate, which actually explains a lot about the feel of the weapon.
They're kind of patterned and everything. Yeah.
Truly laser beams. So that's good to know. And also we can look forward in a hopefully the mid-season patch, but coming up, but at some point, in the next 3 months or so, we can look forward to a sizable stability bump for trace rifles as well as auto rifles, which should make for an interesting time in the Crucible. I do have. Do you have the emblem from the laser tag?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah. That was a time.
Had to get in there. It was a time.
That's what we can say. It was a time.
It was imagine SWAT, but very chaotic. Was kind of how I felt about that one.
It truly felt like I was just playing laser tag. Like you're just constantly just evaporating people and getting evaporated. Just
clicking heads, as they say, just clicking heads.
It was the time. So quick note there about sniper rifles. Bungie has shared that they have a change planned for how flinch works on sniper rifles that is going to be coming out in the near future. They are dramatically increasing the time it takes for the reticle to reset back to center after taking damage. So when you shoot a sniper, their reticle is going to be much slower to calm down after that shot. Which in playtests, they report a marked decrease in the amount of times players are able to shoot through flinch. Now, to avoid affecting PvE experience. They greatly decreased the flinch that snipers suffer in PvE. So I think that's probably a net win for PvE, and hopefully it's going to be a net win for the Crucible mains as well. Now they do note that trades will still happen with snipers. It is possible due to the fact that the way that the player agency settings work and the network connections work, that you may both see yourselves as having fired first, and you may both therefore die. And that is just the nature of the game. So be aware of that. Don't freak out if you are still trading with snipers after this. And one other good note, this is something I picked up off Twitter, and I can't remember who said it now, but be aware of the fact that this is not necessarily licensed to go just challenging snipers willy-nilly and just walking into sniper lanes like you own them. You will absolutely feed those snipers if you do that. Like, rein the ego in, remain calm, and just look at this for what it is. Like, that when you have to challenge a sniper, your odds of winning that are slightly less bad.
I think
there it is.
A lot of times I ask myself, what wants me to move around this corner? Is it my strategy or is it my ego?
Yeah, and very often for all of us, it is ego. You want to win that gunfight, you really should just back off and find a new angle. And I say you, and I do mean me. So with that said, let's go back to the Retraced Path here so we can get through it and start talking about the TWAB.
Yeah.
So Solar Trace Rifle, great base stats. Times to kill for trace rifles. This is one that actually we have to note this on, right? It's not a one-shot weapon. So the baselines are 0.73 seconds, optimal, 11 crits, 1 body, real hard to do. The adjusted time to kill is 0.8 seconds, 8 crits, 5 bodies, pretty doable. Still not easy, but certainly doable. And then 16 bodies will kill somebody in 1 second, which is pretty good body shot time to kill, except that it's a special weapon, and that's really chewing through your ammo. Now, if you do have a stack of Tricorn active, which is the kind of the PvP damage perk of note here, the optimal time to kill drops to 0.67 seconds with 8 crits and 3 bodies, which is difficult, but achievable. The accuracy adjusted then is 0.73 seconds, same as the original optimal, but it's 5 crits and 7 bodies, which is eminently achievable. Less than 50% crit ratio. Very, very... I hate to say easy to do and then have somebody go struggle to do it and be like, Kutch is a jerk.
Relatively.
But it is relatively easy to achieve. And even if you have to body them down, 14 bodies, 0.87 seconds, that is as fast as the optimal for many primary weapons. So Tricorn really doing some work there. Frenzy is the same damage buff. It's 15%, so it's going to have the exact same effects. And if you somehow managed to get Focused Fury active, I don't know how you did it, but congratulations.
Good on you,
Yeah, just major respect at that point. All right, I'm going to step back for a second. I want to hear your thoughts on trace rifles, just in general here. What do you look at Retraced Path? Is it worth having?
I think that a phrase I like to use is a victim of its archetype, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a bad gun. It's fine stats. It's got fine perks. But just the crit ratio requirement that we've just been talking about here is too high for a weapon that consumes special ammo. If you are just a Kovacs addict, just aim maniac, and you can beam your shots, absolutely. Great weapon. Great special weapon. But I think that the precision requirement is high enough to keep a lot of players from really even approaching trace rifles in the Crucible for the most part, because despite the fact that they have not a bad TTK, their optimal TTK, if you're landing with just a consistent crits, is fine, right? Whether you buff it up with a Golden Trike, you buff it up with a Frenzy or something like that, and you could have an absolutely competitive TTK. But I think that, again, it comes back to the idea that the ask for my precision is too high for the reward that it's giving me in terms of TTK, especially when we compare it to some primary weapons, which, I think that the trace rifle's range is not bad at all. You're looking at 35 meters of range, I think, on a trace rifle like this, which is fine, but I I'm just going to lean towards a really accurate, high rate of fire assault rifle, or an SMG that can really lean into its range for a similar GTK. When I'm talking 30 to 35 meters, and you start looking around at some aggressive frame SMGs with rangefinder and this type of a thing, the argument for the range gap that it's filling, I think is just a tough sell, and I think that's what keeps most players, or just keeps trace rifles in general, out of the Crucible meta. And it's also definitely something that is kind of tough to balance against, because laser tag weekend, right? It's like the ultimate example of this, but trying to make it accessible and make it potent without making it overpowered is a very tight line to walk.
Yeah, I think that's really the difficulty with trace rifles in the sandbox, is that it's just it's tough to figure out exactly what they could do that would make them good without making them too good. Yeah, because they do walk a fine line. They do take very well to damage buffs of all kinds. We're talking about 15%, right? So an Empower and Rift is going to do great things for you if you're running a Warlock. Even 10% is going to make a difference for you in terms of making it much easier to use these. So if you've got Radiant, and you can activate that on any class. Hunters, of course, have the easiest path, but every class can do it pretty easily. There's a lot of stuff you can do to try to make them useful, but again, it's like, to a certain extent, you have to ask, should I be using a weapon that's already good, and then making that weapon easier to use?
Yeah.
And that's always been the trouble I've had with them in PvE as well, is that they chew through ammo so fast that I always kind of end up questioning, like, gosh, should I just be using like a normal weapon? And aside from, say, Divinity, what do you do?
I think this does, PvE wise, I One for All is like made for trace rifles, right? Hitting targets quickly, flashing between them. Golden Tricorn has super high damage output potential, but yeah, you need to be building into it, and it is tough when I'm having to trade out my Fusion for rifle for this. I'm having to trade out my Waveframe GL for something like this. It's a tough argument.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in light of in terms of like what I'd be looking for on a weapon like this, I don't know. It almost doesn't matter what you go with, because the base stats are so good. But you might as well lean into stability, make your life easier. Lean into range, give yourself, again, push out that damage fall off distance, aim assist fall off distance as much as you can. And so, in that vein, what I'd be looking at is probably like a range masterwork, probably like a small bore type situation for the barrel. There's any of the barrels that aren't penalizing anything, I'd be pretty okay with, because you can always hopefully get a masterwork that's gonna work with them to give you high range, high stability, and hopefully put some points into handling if you can. I like Tactical Battery because it just kind of buffs a bunch of different stats. Generally makes the gun feel better. It's the most stat points you can get for a battery perk, which is certainly worthwhile. But you've got Particle Repeater, you've got Projection Fuse, you've got Light Battery, which is also a very solid option for filling in, buffing the stats.
Yeah, well, attack gives range, right? And then Light is just handling and reload.
Right, yep, yeah. So Light is plus 10 handling, plus 10 reload. Tactical Battery is plus 5 range, plus 5 stability, and plus 10 reload. So either way, you're pulling 20 points, which is a huge boon. And they'll both make the gun feel better. And then I like Well-Rounded for this weapon because I also like Golden Tricorn for this weapon. And it feels like it makes sense to lean hard into just chucking belays or chucking grenades, like one or the other. Just go full tilt on that. For passive perks, Perpetual Motion is always hard to pass up. It does all the things that this weapon needs to do better. And Incandescent is just a beautiful, beautiful perk that's incredibly fun, even when it does nothing for you. And it's got Hot Swap, so you've got your handling like slightly covered, right? I don't know. What do you think? Am I missing any worthwhile perks here?
I'm dying to see some hunter with a Caliban's build go into the Crucible with Well-Rounded and Golden Tricorn and just absolutely tear up lobbies with this thing. But I think that the players that are going to be able to do that are few and far between, and it is going to take a lot of effort to make something like that work. So I see its potential, but I also see that is at a very high ceiling. And it's probably going to be something you're going to have to really build into, again, with some kind of crazy Caliban's hand, right? You're proccing Well-Rounded, you can get Golden Tricorn stacked up, you're maintaining ammo, and you can just melt through targets with Golden Tricorn ×2. But it's a lot to ask for maybe not the most return.
Yeah, you always have to wonder, like, is there just a good weapon that I could have been running instead? But that is probably the way that you would do it. You'd run Caliban's, you'd run, a high radiance uptime, so you can hopefully be stacking that with Golden Tricorn to make the time to kill even faster. Just for giggles, I ran it through the spreadsheet, and the two of those together give you a 0.67 time to kill with 4 crits and 7 bodies. You can body somebody down in 0.8 seconds.
Whew, it's not bad. That's accessible. Okay.
If you've damaged them with that knife, then it's even faster. So it's certainly a thing you could do. That's definitely a direction that you could go in. And perhaps the only way to really make this weapon work in the Crucible is to fully build into it. All right. Well, let's leave it at that. Unless you've got anything you want to add. But I think that's.
I mean, a good set of weapons, honestly. All in all, good set of weapons, interesting set of weapons, a lot of unique features to them.
Yeah, very true. Every single one of these weapons is memorable. Really true of all the 30th anniversary weapons. Just overall a great release, completely worth the money. Congrats to everyone who waited a year and got it free. As it goes. But let's dive into the TWAB, because this was a meaty. This was a meaty TWAB this week. I was not expecting a meaty TWAB this week. I was completely caught off guard by this, but we've got some stuff to go over, and let's just kind of go back and forth, grabbing stuff that jumped out at us as being really worth discussing in terms of how it affects the Crucible. So the first thing that it's really the first thing they talk about in the weapons section. I'm gonna totally ignore the bans, because I don't think I have anything to add. It is what it is. Stuff happened. It was unfortunate. They messed up. They apologized. I don't know what else, anyone can say about it. It sucks. And that's that. So that's all I'm going to say on that topic. Let's talk about playing the game, though. So, full auto trigger system going away because it's going to become a feature that you can just opt into. Now, I am curious to see how that plays out for shotguns, but we'll get to that, when we can cross that bridge. But it is going to directly affect a whole bunch of exotics, because there are a bunch of exotics that have full auto trigger system as, either a hidden perk or like an actual
trait, a catalyst,
knowledge. Yeah, it's tagged in here and there across a whole bunch of exotic weapons. So they have shared that they are going to be replacing it with something else that is synergistic with the weapon, that the goal being to make the weapon more useful in PvE, but not necessarily make the weapon stronger in PvP. They provided some examples which lead me to believe that, in fact, some of these weapons may be stronger in PvP as well. And I'm not too upset about it, because by and large, these are weapons that I like. So Traveler's Chosen is perhaps one of my favorite weapons in the game. They are replacing full auto trigger system in the catalyst with Surplus, which is just chef's kiss. Oh, it's
as if it needed better stats from the base.
Yeah, it's you kill people with the weapon, you get better stats. You activate the weapon's ability to recharge your abilities, you get better stats. The weapon fundamentally is just better all the time, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. It's so good. It's so good. This is one of the few sidearms that competes with Drang for me in terms of like how much playtime I give it. And that's saying a lot, because I do love me some Drang. So Vigilance Wing getting Ensemble, which is also an interesting kind of uptime to the stats option here. And perhaps I undersold this when I initially reacted on Twitter, as several people told me that they were like, oh, this is huge. And it's pretty good. Ensemble, categorically worse than surplus in my mind, because you do have to be sticking close to your teammates to keep it active. So it's a little bit less in your control, especially if you have teammates who like to run off. Now, if you're playing in a coordinated fire team where they are acknowledging that you are trying to keep Ensemble up and they're allowing you to stick with them easily, you're playing as a team, it's a fantastic perk. This is a huge buff in that situation. Vigilance Wing, of course, is kind of built to play in those team situations. It's super slept on right now in the meta. It's very, very strong, very easy to use. So,
and that's a big. I mean, for a weapon with such low, 33 base handling on this thing, pulling in a perk like Ensemble, which when it is up is 30 handling. Yeah. I mean, so we're talking an effective double right there. Yeah, that is huge buff right there.
Yeah. And then no time to explain, getting Feeding Frenzy, which, it's one of those perks where, we're kind of taking a weapon that's already super great and we're just making it greater. This is already a weapon where you're farming headshots so that you can just farm Guardians. And then Feeding Frenzy is just rewarding you for farming those Guardians with faster reloads. So it doesn't excite me on the same level as it does Surplus. Is it going to make the weapon better in all modes? Yeah, it is. And then Divinity is getting changes, and I'm just going to stop talking and I'm going to hand it over to you because I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole myself, but I do want to see you go down that rabbit hole.
I'm gonna say a few things, try to keep this succinct, okay? Number one, don't yell at Salt Lake Repo, please. Like, he didn't do this. This is happening way before he tweeted anything out about it, and he doesn't deserve that hate.
Listeners on this show should know that, because Merc actually talked about this being on their radar before he said anything.
Yes! Or at least, like, a month or something. I don't know what it was exactly, but yeah.
Weeks, at the very least.
Yes, so don't yell at Salt, okay? He's just trying to enjoy the game. I think this is a good nerf, and I'm going to say that because I believe that it opens up the PvE sandbox for other debuffs like Tractor Cannon and like Tether, which are going to grant that full 30% without taking away the kind of accessibility side of making a crit spot that everybody could hit, and how that affects the meta and just affects players in general. Honestly, of all the things that they could have done to Divinity, I feel like this is one of the lighter nerfs to give Divinity, just to turn it down to 15%. I think that there could be much more to say on this, depending on how this lands, how this stacks, if it overrides things, what the situation is there. But wholesale, I think this change landed really well, taking the debuff modifier from 30% to 15%, creates that room for the other parts of the PvE sandbox. It's still very strong, still is going to create that crit bubble, but now it's not quite maybe as automatic of a DPS choice, and just lets some breathing room in there for other stuff in the sandbox. So I think this is a success for a nerf of something that has just absolutely dominated the PvE sandbox, and I think that it will still dominate the PvE sandbox in many ways.
Yeah, no, I mean it's one of those things where it's a weapon I don't have personally, and so I just don't have to think about it. But yeah, it's rare to run with the raid team where somebody's not running Divinity, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, it's fine. Something is always going to be the best. Something is always going to be mandatory. There's no escaping that, and it's fine for this to be it. But it is nice to see a little more breathing room for other options. I think that's kind of the way they phrased it was good. And 15% weaken is still a lot of weaken. Like, that's not a small effect.
That's still a debuff grenade. From your Void class, if you're using the weaken artifact, right, or fragment, I should say. Yeah, and I think that there is still plenty of room for the RPG type of elements, which is something I like about Destiny. The team roles. Yeah, I would love to even see more of a tank player, a DPS player, a healer, and that type of a thing. And that's still there. It's just not always div.
Yeah. So that's that. That's Divinity. Was there? I've got a bunch of these that I want to try to do quick hits on. Were there any that jumped out at you that you want to grab?
I mean, some of these are much more PvE related, adept raid weapons, champion interactions with exotic weapons and stuff like that. And kind of they talked about the Kingsfall perk pool, all very good to see. I love more champ interaction. I'm very happy to hear that there is more being done with adept raids and their loot and their desirability, even though I do understand that is a very niche thing. And then also just their reaction to putting kind of rule-breaking perks into the Kingsfall weapons, but also being able to do so in a way that didn't break the game was really cool to see. But yeah, I mean, those are a few to hit on. And then also they talked about subclass interacting perks, which is a huge thing. We love to talk about this on PvE. I know, Court and Impetus are also huge proponents of this. Any kind of repulsor brace, jolt shot, incandescent, anything like that. The weapons team has just been really just absolutely knocking it out of the park on those. And I'm very happy to see that they are very interested in continuing that pattern in the future and what that may look like.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's kind of a good summing up of a lot of that stuff. I'm going to do some other quick hits. Adagio, always good to get more information on one of the perks that's near and dear to my heart. I love this perk, and I'm working on getting it to work right in the spreadsheet. It is not currently. I'll just so an update for everybody. It's still not currently working reliably in the spreadsheet at this time because it is affecting rate of fire and damage. Coding it into the sheet is a bit more work than most of the other perks. So just be aware of that. Let's see. Some other notes I thought were kind of fun to call out here. Accuracy perks on slug shotguns. Shotguns by their nature are quite accurate as well. And so they suggest that it may not be worth relying on accuracy affecting perks unless you're using the weapon while airborne or in some other situation that's going to reduce the accuracy of the weapon. Now, of course, noting accuracy is not the same as aim assist. These are two different cones, two different systems in the game, and so it is still worth using aim assist perks on these guns to help you land those shots. The aim assist will point you in the right direction. The accuracy will get the slug into the player in a straight line. And so even if you are not accurate, so long as the weapon is accurate, that's what we want. But yeah, aim assist will help correct for your accuracy. So that's still worth having. The bit on enhanced perks I thought was great. Nice to have some hard numbers on enhanced firmly planted and enhanced opening shot. And kind of just a general guideline for what to look for when we're working these out. 5 to 10% over a baseline perk is the guideline, and so that's just kind of good to be aware of. That kind of gives us, for perks where the effect is not obvious, it gives us a baseline like, hey, I think this is what it's doing. Is this plausible? Well, if it's like 30% more, then probably something is wrong. If it's 5 to 10, okay, now we know what it's doing. One quiet moment, likely getting changed. Happy to see it. It's one of those origin traits that was more or less like the first origin trait. I was fine with it. I don't mind reloading faster in between engagements. I'm always happy to do that. I think a lot of people don't see the value in that, and that's fine. It'll get replaced with something that is probably more valuable, and that's fine with me too,
Hey, maybe one quiet moment had to walk so that Hot Swap could run, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's that's kind of the journey, right? They try something small, make sure it doesn't break the game, then we can do more exciting things.
Maybe just a little bit more. Just a little bit more.
So there was a note in there about the minimum draw time for bows and how weapon perks can reduce the minimum draw time even further. I'll note that in the latest iteration of the sheet, I have put estimated time to kill in for bows for the first time. It is assuming that you are maxing out your reload speed effectiveness on the bow, and it is also assuming that you are close enough to your target that the shot is hit scan. As there may be cases at very long ranges where that is not the case, and you may have traveled. Bows are work, so we're not going to dive into that right now. Also great to see Mercules back at work, giving recommendations on how to find god rolls on weapons. I saw that and I just couldn't help grinning. It was super entertaining for me to see that. He still gets to go and do that, even though he's over there at Bungie now. So very happy for him.
I also may, I was gonna say rangefinder. It's been a very hot topic. I'm
Speak on it.
I think this is something that, people thought rangefinder was good for a long time, and then the whole conversation of the way that it affects your bullet magnetism, aim assist, drop off came up, and then it's just been a non-choice type of a perk since then. So it was good to hear, the question was, how do you feel about rangefinder and the way that it can change the weapon? And the response was basically the aim assist fall off is going to be removed, and they acknowledge that it is just super strong, and kind of maybe crowded out some of the other choices. Similarly, we were talking about Divinity, crowds out other debuff options. Sometimes you see rangefinder, show up in a trait column, and you stop looking. And I'm not huge on that, right? I want there to be some thought of competition between the 2 or 3 different traits that may be the best and that type of thing. So, yeah, I think that's good. And I don't think anybody's going to argue that rangefinder maybe was a little too strong.
Yeah, I think that's very very fair to say. Rangefinders has long been just an absolute S tier perk. I think with this change, it's still going to be a very strong perk choice for a lot of weapons.
Yeah, still a top choice.
And so that's, but no longer quite as mandatory. Little more room for stuff to compete with it. Stuff like moving target that was kind of almost universally worse on primaries, and now it's perhaps maybe not worse in some cases.
There's a conversation, at least, and I love to see that.
Yeah, those meaningful choices are what make the game fun. And so the last bit here, just some stuff to look forward to. Future balance changes coming, likely appearing in the mid-season balance pass. We mentioned the sizable stability bump for auto rifles and trace rifles before. Small buff to critical hit damage on adaptive frame pulse rifles and precision frame auto rifles. I'm going to be expecting to see a very small buff here that ultimately makes the optimal times to kill more achievable without increasing the optimal, or I should say, without making the optimal time to kill faster.
Yeah, I feel like adaptives have kind of just been right on the edge.
They have.
Right on the fringe of the meta.
Any damage buff of 8% and above, so Radiant on up, makes them 2 burst super fast. So the adaptive pulse rifles have long been right there. And if you have a reliable damage buff, they've been there. So precision frame auto rifles are currently there mostly because the Amit is just real good.
Yeah, shout out to Phaeton for convincing me that was not just a PvE weapon.
Oh yeah,
and I should give it a try. Yeah, it's a dueler, as you said, for sure. It is.
Yeah, I've got enhanced DSR and tap the trigger on mine, and it doesn't miss.
Oh no, it hits. Yeah.
Yeah, all headshots all day. I'll talk more about that gun in another episode, but slightly reducing effective range of pulse rifles at low to mid stat values. So that might give auto rifles a little more breathing room, hand cannons a little more breathing room, scout rifles just more breathing room. So we'll see how that plays out. Jade Rabbit, speaking of scout rifles, getting a nerf to ease of use, no time to explain. Also getting a nerf to ease of use. That's going to make especially the PC players happy. I think a lot of PC players don't realize that no time is not nearly as good on controller as it is on PC or on mouse and keyboard, I should say. But it's still good. It's still good on both. It's just not as dominant.
Oh, that is a reality I live every day, as they say.
Yes.
The no time lobbies have been very present. So I'm pretty happy to see those. And honestly, J Rabbit too. They mentioned this earlier on in the TWAB, but yeah, 150s are hot right now in terms of scout rifles.
Yeah, Jade Rabbit actually getting a full perk rework as well. Fate of All Fools getting updated. So good to see, because it's been a bit worthless by and large. Don't hate me if you like it, but I'm just telling you how I feel. Lord of Wolves rework continuing. Rocket launcher blast radius getting buffed. Glaive damage resistance getting nerfed. That is, I think, super important because, of course, we have a hit registration fix coming for glaives in Season 19, and if they hit consistently and they have 75% DR, they're the only weapon that I will play in the Crucible. And now I gotta wait and see what the DR nerf is before I can decide if that's...
I think they'll still land in a very usable state. Maybe not the absolute meta, but I'm sure many, including our resident glaive expert, Lego, will put them to great efficacy and use.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it plays out. Sidearms are getting an aim assist fall off buff, which is fantastic to see. Sidearms have long languished, just a bit too difficult to use at ranges against weapons that they compete with, like fusion rifles, SMGs, even shotguns. Like, just very difficult to effectively use sidearms in a lot of cases. So it's nice to see them getting some loves. The sniper flinch rework, small tweaks to submachine guns that are outperforming their intended ranges. So it sounds like some targeted adjustments coming to some of those outliers. Cough, cough, yeah. My poor Shires. No, it's totally deserved. High impact scout rifle damage also getting a slight decrease. Curious to see if that decrease affects anything, if it just like adjusts how they work with damage buffs. Like I thought they were okay in terms of damage. I thought it was mostly an ease of use issue, mostly for Jade Rabbit, that was really causing people to gripe. You don't see a lot of other high impact scouts shining, so
yeah. I was gonna say I'd be very interested to see if there's any other legendaries or anything like that that are in the top 100 meta.
Like, I've tried to use other high impact scouts. It's not fun. It's
not a good time, you would say.
It's really quite difficult, especially because everyone else is using Jade Rabbit. So, anyways, so we've got some zoom outliers that they're also doing some targeted changes to. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Lots of good stuff. What else am I forgetting? Oh, shotgun randomness.
Yeah, I was gonna say the last couple here. That was one I really wanted to call out, which is very interesting.
Loads of guns getting touched.
Yeah, 20 perks. 20 exotics.
Big changes. Risk Runner PvP arc damage resistance getting reduced, but being left at ridiculous levels in PvE. Love it. I run out of bounds a lot, as people who listen to the show know, and it is very frustrating to suddenly realize that somebody has Risk Runner, because I then have to change my loadout mid-match, and it's not fun. But yeah, that's just an instant loss to run an arc weapon and then suddenly hit the Risk Runner user. But that's why they do it. Saint, anything else in this TWAB that you feel like needs to be said, needs to be called out or discussed?
No, I think we've gone through pretty much all of it. I've had a little time with some of the shotgun changes for Season 19, and I'm super interested to see how that lands in the game whenever that finally comes out, and the way that it just impacts the general PvP meta, but also the way that people view shotguns and things like that. Ivan, G-Turda, even Fallout, a lot of people over the years have put a lot of time into testing shotguns, and I think it's just such an interesting change. Again, I think that's one that could have a really interesting impact on the overall, just like Crucible meta and how people view shotguns as a weapon type. So I'm very, very tuned to that one. Could be paying a lot of attention to that over the next few seasons.
The last minute tease. Yeah, I mean, I know that I can't ask you about that, so I'm not going to be rude. I'm also very curious to see how this rework lands, and I have not had any time with it, so I think everyone is pretty emotionally invested in seeing that work out. So we'll get there when we get there. It's not really too long from now before we're there, so that's good to know. I guess the one last thing that I've almost forgot, Headseeker's getting a change, getting some more duration and getting an aim assist buff.
Yeah.
So I think that means I might have to actually add it to the spreadsheet. It's a perk that I overlooked, in part because the math is complicated, and in part because it just wasn't really good for the most part.
Yeah, it never had a real impact. We were talking about TTK, right, and that type of a thing, using a pulse. And Seeker's not going to be your game changer. But now,
Now it might be. So I'll have to sit and do some math. And yeah, Bungie always giving me the fun challenges. Always throwing the interesting, complicated bits at me. I can't complain. It keeps me busy, keeps me learning. So all right, Saint, this has been a heck of an episode. We've covered a ton of ground. Tell folks, where do they go to hear more from you?
You can listen in to Podcast versus Enemies with Court, Impetus, and myself. We are breaking down all the latest in PvE side of Destiny 2 each and every week under that show name. We get into a lot of stuff. We get into GMs, we get into the metas, we get into our individual class loadouts for all 3 different classes and stuff like that. Honestly, that is the best place that you can find me if you want to hear more about my thoughts, about my musings as a Titan main, punching things and just trying to make my way in the universe. If you want to find me elsewhere, you can find me by Saint_Kabir over on Discord, Twitter, Twitch, anywhere that I may appear on the internet.
All right, awesome. Well, folks, do be sure to give Saint a follow on Twitter and check out Podcast versus Enemies. It is, of course, a little bit selfish, as it is a Destiny Massive Breakdowns podcast. That's our second show, our second full Destiny show launched under the Massive Breakdowns banner. I truly couldn't be prouder of what you guys have accomplished with really only very minimal input from myself. You guys have really taken the ball and run with it, and I love to see it. I truly do. It is my first stop when I need to do something in game, when I need a build, and I think it should be yours as well, dear listener. So check it out. For more from Destiny Massive Breakdowns, you can, of course, visit DestinyMassiveBreakdowns.com. That is the homepage that links you to all the shows, to this show, to Podcast versus Enemies, to Star Wars Beneath Twin Suns, which is the podcast where you can still hear myself and Hercules hang out just like the old days, except we're talking about Star Wars, and it's a great time. That'll also link you into the Discord, which is a phenomenal place to hang out, learn about the game. Incredibly active community. We've got Destiny science going down, just on truly mind-breaking levels. We've got Destiny going down. People dropping just absolutely incredible setups for their Guardians. We've got LFG. We've got community content, people sharing guides and builds and information that they've created. We've got role reviews. We've got builds and theory crafting. Has its own forum now, where you can share your builds, check out builds developed by other Guardians, share your comments and thoughts. And of course, we also have a lounge for the patrons. You can also access the Patreon from the homepage and from the Twitter at DestinyMBP. If you do have an interest in supporting the show and helping us to continue to grow, then that is the place to do it.
I mean, builds, fashion, breakdowns, science. What more could you want from a server?
It's got all the stuff. We got infographics. We've got, what else do we have? We got, voice channels, all the stuff you expect from a channel. We've also got the Spicy Brews channel where you can hang out and share foods and drinks. Like it's a fun time. It's a fun time. There's always something fun to do in the Massive Breakdowns Discord. All right, before we sign off, I just want to say a special thank you to Wood the High Stepper, who left us a 5-star review via Apple Podcasts, and this is what Wood wrote. Great show, 5 stars. As a vet, I've struggled with PvP, started listening about 2 years ago. I've never been one to play with the meta, so with the help of DMB, I've been able to find perks that go with my build to combat meta users to a point where I've been able to bring my 0.8 KD up to a 1.0 KD. Then PvE came out and it changed my game. I'm mostly a PvE guy and had builds I thought were good, but oh boy was I wrong. Thank you all for all you do. Keep up the great work. This again from Wood the High Stepper here in the US of A. Thank you so much. And Saint, some love for you guys as well. Well deserved.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Wood.
Hopefully you'll also see a review on the PvE feed as well. I want to encourage everyone. If you love the show, you want to see us reach more Guardians, but supporting financially isn't something that you're interested in or are able to do. One of the best things you can do for Destiny Massive Breakdowns, for Podcast vs. Enemies, for Beneath Twin Suns is leave us a review. Not just a rating. 5-star ratings are great, but leaving us a review, that's what the algorithm looks for. And that's what other Guardians look for when they are deciding if they're going to listen to the show. So do that for us, and you've done truly, truly a great thing. With that, this has been episode 279. I'm your host, Kid Kutcha, my guest, Saint Kabir. Peace.